Please just bear in mind that our voice is not at our best, but it can also be an asset because it's kind of sexy. But without further ado, please welcome Dalia. Dalia Mabrouk.
Is life a comedy? Is it? Well, how many of you here today have been to a public speaking competition before where the contestants can't speak? This is your lucky night, and standing in front of you is such a contestant. Days before the competition, Lady Fate decided to have a bit of comedy with me and decided to gift me with laryngitis. I swear, I'm amazed I could walk in a straight line with all the drugs I've been taking lately to get better. And just to rub salt in the wound, my subject is life a comedy? Oh, the irony. You couldn't make it up if you tried, huh? But cruel fate aside, we humans, we live pretty complicated lives, don't you think? Wars, politics, social unrest, climate change, pandemics, laryngitis. Everywhere you look, there's trouble brewing on our global stage that we call life. So what do? How do we handle it when life gets too hard for us to manage? Comedy. Comedy is our coping mechanism for everything that real life throws at us. Because let's face it, it's not always easy, huh? So does that make life a comedy? Let's step back a bit and think about it. Comedy originated in ancient Greece, and the word komodia means village revel, which today is what we would call a fete or a carnival. And comedies were always stage plays with a humorous storyline and a happy ending, and which in fact formed as a reaction to earlier Greek tragedies that had serious storylines and sad endings. And comedies come in all forms, but the one we crave the most is that which makes us laugh and gives us our happily ever after. Because after all, isn't that what we want for ourselves and which real life doesn't always give us? Aristotle himself tells us that happiness is the ideal state. Yet comedy wasn't always happy and wasn't always an ideal state. And nowhere was this clearer than in ancient Greece, where Athenians fiercely guarded their democracy by using comedy to protest and to criticize the establishment. What better way to tear down corrupt rulers and untouchable citizens than to laugh at and ridicule them? No one was above the criticism, not even the great Socrates himself, who fell victim to the double-edged sword of comedy and was executed based on the accusations against him in political plays by Aristophanes. It took me a week just to learn how to pronounce that. Anyways, for poor old Socrates, not only did life prove not to be a comedy, but in fact, a real tragedy. Let's fast forward into the 21st century. And where around us do we see evidence that life and comedy are not the same, and that someone's tragedy is another person's comedy? Do I hear you say, Schadenfreude? Oh yeah. Schadenfreude is when we laugh at the pain and misery of others. And come on, we all do it, right? I mean, what's funnier than seeing a beautiful model fall on the catwalk, or a pompous politician get caught in flagrante with his children's nanny, or a public speaking contestant lose her voice before the competition? Schadenfreude. It's just another form of our coping mechanism whereby laughing at other people's problems makes us feel better about our own. Now, but let me tell you now about how I use comedy in my daily trials and tribulations. Has anyone here ever tried driving in Egypt? Don't. Do not. It is an extreme sport that is not for the faint-hearted. And when I first started, I took my driving very seriously. And still, most days I'd get home shaking and traumatized. But one memorable incident that sticks in my mind decades later was when I was crawling along in my little Fiat 131 when a huge Mercedes plowed into me and knocked me onto the pavement. Dazed, I staggered out, surveyed the damage, and burst into tears. 2 men sauntered out of the Mercedes and came up to me. Why are you so upset? These things happen. You shouldn't take these little things seriously. This is Cairo. I was incensed, convinced that their blasé attitude was because it wasn't their car that was totaled. And as we were arguing, out of nowhere, a minibus came along and smashed into the Mercedes. Whoosh! Total silence. The men stared at the car, stared at each other, then back at the car again, and then exploded into laughter. At this point, I just stopped. I knew I'd lost this argument because they turned round to me and said, you see, these things happen. You shouldn't take little things seriously. This is Cairo. Agony. But years later, I learned a valuable lesson from it. Is it bad that I could have been injured or seriously hurt and my car was damaged? No, it's not good. Is it any less dangerous driving in Cairo? Certainly not. But I understand now why, for the sake of our sanity, sometimes we need to laugh at our problems because that's the only way we can face them. My friends, comedy is the thing that allows us to see life as it really is, but package it in a way that makes it more tolerable for us. It's not real. It's not life. It's a tool, but a tool without which life would be impossible. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hear it for Dalia.